Hi everyone, BEERBONGS Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd. And it's time for a review of the new Post Malone album, BEERBONGS and BENTLEYS. This is the latest album from White Iverson himself, Post Malone, Mr. Austin Richard Post, who blew up back in 2015 off of a pretty hot song, White Iverson. After that, he dropped a mixtape. Eventually, we had his full-length commercial debut, Stoney, late 2016 in December. It's an album that at the time didn't cause a gigantic splash, but it slowly gained him more and more momentum over the course of 2017. Now, I did not care for the album for a lot of different reasons, which I'm not going to rehash in this video. I originally slapped Stoney with a not good. My negativity toward this record most likely inspired a lyric on this new album over here. We don't follow trends, rest in peace to Yamo. Your new shit sucks, I feel like Anthony Fantano. Ooh. But when it comes to Post Malone's new stuff, at least the teaser tracks from this album, my reactions have been far from negative. In 2017, Post landed one of the biggest songs of the year, ROCKSTAR, a track that I ranked as being one of my favorite singles of the year. I think his best single so far, one of his best songs to date. Really the first song from him that I honestly loved. And not just because the hook was sharp as hell and the 21 Savage feature was really cold, not just because the production was incredibly grand and eerie and atmospheric. A lot of my attraction to this song has to do with the singing. I mean, Post's singing on this track has really smoothed out. It features a good balance of his actual voice, the timbre of his voice, and some auto-tune. The mixing on the vocals sound better as well. And at the time I remember thinking, hey, you know, if he could make a song this good, maybe he'll pull through on BEERBONGS and BENTLEYS. Maybe it'll happen. Now, in a lot of ways, this record is merely an improvement on the Stoney formula. It's about the same track list length and runtime, the same blend of trap-style production and auto-tune vocals and moody R&B, but this time around the sound is measurably better. So are the vocal performances too. Post's singing on this album is definitely more versatile. It's not nearly as amateurish or annoying, weak, or washed out in effects. The production across the board on this thing sounds a lot more grand as well. Very intoxicating, very chilly. I'm not going to say it's reinventing the wheel or groundbreaking. If you've kept up with Ray Shremmerd or Travis Scott or like The Weeknd, you kind of know the vibe that Post Malone is going for, especially on tracks like Taking Shots, which is this really generic drinking track, really generic party track, and for whatever reason the instrumental just kind of has this vibe that reminds me of Kanye West's Fuck My Life from his T-Lop record. So there are definitely similarities that Post has to his contemporaries. His music is very much the product of the current state of music, the trend, the trap trend that we found ourselves trapped in. But simultaneously, Post has effectively, with this album, carved out a little niche for himself in the oversaturated field of part rappers, part singers. I mean, there are a couple of obvious shortcomings on this thing. The fact that it did not really truly need to be an hour. I mean, there aren't that many highlights on here. Post's sound, his style, isn't that varied, nor are his lyrics so substantive and thoughtful that he has enough stories or angles to pack throughout this record. I mean, the song 92 Explorer, for example, it's not bad, it's listenable, it's just as listenable as nearly any other song on here, but is it really adding anything to the track list that the previous tracks didn't already? Not really. I kind of feel the same way about the song Candy Paint. As much as the aesthetic of the track is uniquely glamorous and dreamy, the vocal melody is just super tedious and structurally it's pretty weak. So there are moments where it does feel like Post is kind of padding the track list out. Most likely because putting out a project of this length with this many tracks on it is just kind of the name of the game in the age of streaming. Gotta get those plays! Get those plays, baby! And as much as I realize that that is the business model, it doesn't make this album any less of a slog. Especially when Post is subjecting me to tracks like Spoil My Night, which might have the trashiest vocal melody on the entire record. One of the worst Sway Lee features I've heard him drop in the past year. I've never been like a small fry. And some of the most ridiculous lyrics on the entire project. Before the existence of this verse, I was really a devout atheist, but I'm pretty sure now that I've seen 2 rock references and a Jumanji reference within the same block of text, that is proof that God exists. Obviously, the same divine inspiration that went into writing the Bible went into writing this. If you now open up to your 11th condiment, you'll see, "Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's beautiful boobies." So as ridiculous as a few parts of this album are, I have to admit that most of this album, it sounds like pure hits. Hits on hits on hits. And I guess I don't mind the lyrics being a little shallow if it means that the tracks are just impeccably produced, impeccably catchy. And I think Post does make an effort on this album to pepper songs and verses throughout it where you do get a little bit more introspection. It does seem like he pulls back the veil a little bit, gets a bit more personal. That's the vibe that I get on the opening track, Paranoid, on the album, as he's singing dramatically over this very sad, moody instrumental about how he's watching his back and he can't trust anybody, referencing Edward Snowden, who honestly does not get referenced enough. He really doesn't. In Post's defense, I mean, he has gotten a lot of hate over the past few years, some deserved, some not. So I definitely get the angle he's taking with this track, but really what stunned me about this song is that his voice sounds so much more dynamic on this track than it did on nearly any other song on Stoney. He has such an emotional vibrato on this track, and many others here. He hits all these passionate cracks on the hook as soon as he really starts to push that volume, and I think he's generally doing a better job of kind of wearing his emotions on his sleeve as he's performing. Those emotions also translate on the track Rich and Sad, a track where it seems like he's wishing that this person who he had as a love interest stayed in his life either before or after the money. All I really get a sense of on this track is that the money wasn't making this person stay. He couldn't buy this person's love, and that he would trade all the money and all the success to get this person back. It's one of the most emotionally compelling portrayals of loneliness and fame that I've heard from a pop rapper at Malone's level in a while. Not to mention the vocal melody on the hook just has ingrained itself in my brain. I would throw it all away, I just keep on wishing that the money made you stay. The song ZACK and Codeine, as in referencing the sweet life of Zack and Cody, that is one of several intoxicating and incredibly blissful party tracks on the album. Probably the best one here, but still one that I have a hard time rationalizing, considering that you do have a moment on this record where Post is shouting out ASAP yams, but then simultaneously talking about rinsing his mouth out with codeine and how his life is sweet like codeine. Still, it's a pretty bubbly track, super catchy, and makes me feel like I'm swimming through the ocean. The song Over Now is one of the most dramatic tracks on the entire album, really second only to Blame It On Me. Blame it on me! God, those thick, layered vocal harmonies on that track. It sounds so weird and robotic and epic. Him bouncing back and forth between taking the blame but then not wanting to take the blame. It just seems like he's tearing himself emotionally apart from the inside. But the song Over Now is one of the most aggressive relationship ending songs I've heard in a while. Like, he's talking about putting that pussy in a body bag. It's over. It's done. I don't even want you anymore. It's like he's just kicking down the door on this relationship and just... He's so unapologetic on this track, yet also admitting what an idiot he was. He's just in the throes of this angry relationship psychosis, and it's pretty heavy. The song Psycho, while it did underwhelm me a little bit when I first heard it, it has grown on me. It's kind of got this nice nocturnal summery vibe to it, and I have to admit that Ty Dolla $ign and Post Malone are a good complement for one another. And even though maybe at its core it's just kind of like a cheap relationship song, you know, getting over that other person who you used to be with and so on and so forth, I think Better Now might be this album's sleeper hit. I mean, it's just too insanely catchy and cut and dry for it not to latch onto the hearts of Post's young audience whenever a guy or a girl makes him feel bad. You know I say that I am better now, better now. Not to mention that this is one of many tracks on here where I feel like Post separates himself a bit from a lot of his competition, in that you do kind of hear those subtle notes of guitar and bass, actual guitar and bass being worked into his tracks. He does kind of feel like he's more of a guitar strumming singer-songwriter, just kind of belting out these songs about heartbreak than he is a rapper or a trap rapper. He's just merely kind of using this production and this aesthetic to sell these songs that he's writing, which we also get a glimpse of on the song Stay, which is essentially the album's lone acoustic track, which actually has some good chord progressions. It's another moment on the album where Post seems to be struggling with keeping a relationship together. At this point on the record, it's really kind of nothing new. He's kind of been spinning these heartbreak anthems on numerous points of the album so far, and lyrically, even though there are some pretty dramatic moments like, oh my god, she put her cigarette out on your face, what the fuck? It's not like the lyrics are so great that just stripping away all of the bouncy, heavy, trap-style production that, you know, I'm just being wowed by Post's pen game, you know? As far as some of the other features on here goes, I mean, Nicki Minaj's was pretty good, certainly better than Young Gerald's G-Eazy. However, I think best feature is easily taken by YG on this thing. And overall, I'm just really happy, I'm really pleased, and kind of surprised too. I mean, after hearing ROCKSTAR, of course, as I said earlier, I thought that Post might be able to pull through on this one if he focused and came through with a sound that was as quality in a series of songs that were as catchy as what he had delivered on that single. And for the most part, he did that. I mean, he still has a ways to go in terms of building his style so that he's not just tediously repeating himself again and again and again and again. And who knows if he'll ever really get there considering the audience that he's trying to attract with his music. But on BEERBONGS and BENTLEYS, I'm hearing improvements on all fronts, and quite a few. Again, better production, better singing, better vocals, better grasp of melody, better grasp of song structure, some pretty good performances too. I can't hate on this one. I really can't. It's not that bad. I'm feeling a strong 6 to a light 7 on this one. Transition. Have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best. You're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe, and please don't cry. Just leave a comment in the comments if you're feeling like you need to say something. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, forever.